How can we experience this kind of peace in the midst of the anxieties and the pains and the troubles that we go through in life? How can we withstand the enemy's barrage of attack and fight the battles in our minds against worry and fear and anxiety? Simply put, we can do it by practicing gratitude and celebration. And that seems like such an inadequate answer, doesn't it? Paul goes on in verse 11 and he says, I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances. I have learned, and he learned it because he practiced these things. As we practice gratitude and celebration, we learn how to be content in every circumstance. And what he learned is that gratitude and celebration are disciplines that pave the way for God's peace to guard us and guide us. And it's because gratitude and celebration reorient our hearts from what we feel to who we know. And sometimes what we feel is all we know. And it feels so true in the moment, doesn't it? Our circumstances can give us this kind of temporary amnesia, making us forget what is true about God, what is true about ourselves. They blind us from seeing anything good around us. And as we live in this perpetual state of anxiety and fear and discontent, it begins to poison our heart and our mind, our attitudes, and our actions. It reminds me of the sports reporter in Iowa. I'm so glad that we got everything up so that we can play this video. He's a sports reporter. A blizzard was coming through Iowa, and the regular weatherman couldn't come in, and so they called him in to come in and cover for him. Maybe you've seen this clip. And he, poor guy, could not find anything good about his situation, and it definitely affected his attitude and his actions. Let's check out this clip.
Mark, how you feeling out there?
Again, the same way I felt about 8 minutes ago when you asked me that same question, right? I normally do sports. Everything is canceled here for the next couple of days. So what better time to ask the sports guy to come in about 5 hours earlier than he would normally wake up, go stand out in the wind and the snow and the cold and tell other people not to do the same. I didn't even realize that there was a 3:30 also in the morning until today. It's absolutely fantastic, Ryan. You know, I'm used to these evening shows that are only 30 minutes long, and generally on those shows, I'm inside. So this is a really long show. Tune in for the next couple hours to watch me progressively get crankier.
I love that. One of the parts that it wasn't included in that, at one point he said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is I can still feel my face. The bad news is I kind of wish I couldn't. We've probably all been there at some point. Maybe some of us as recently as just a couple of weeks ago, and we were like, why is it still so cold outside? It's supposed to be springtime. Like, we cannot find anything good in our situation. Compare that to a church sign that I saw while driving to Bedford a couple of weeks ago. It said, on the bright side, no mosquitoes lately. Praise the Lord. And it made me think, how do we get from this, where we just are miserably walking through life because of the situation we find ourselves in, to this, where we're able to see maybe a different side of it? Do we just ignore the situation that we're in? Do we minimize it? Do we just pretend like everything is going to be okay and just put on a good face, try to fake it till we make it? I don't think that's what we do, and I don't think that that's what the solution that Paul gives to us. Go back to our text, verse 5. And Paul says something at the end of it that I think is so easy for us to forget when we are going through difficulties. He reminds us that the Lord is near. And I used to read this verse before I really started to understand the beauty and the depth of God's grace as almost like Paul attaching a threat to the words before. Rejoice in the Lord always. I will say it again, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near. He's watching. That's not it. It is a gentle reminder that no matter what we go through, the Lord is near. He is with us. He has not abandoned us, even if it feels like it. He is with us. And we can rejoice, not for every situation. We can rejoice not because of every situation. We can rejoice in every situation because the Lord is near. He is close to the brokenhearted. And there is a peace that comes from knowing that we are not alone or abandoned in our struggles. Verse 6, he goes on, he tells us that when we feel anxious, to pray with thanksgiving, to pray prayers of gratitude and celebration. God had revealed to Paul what modern psychology is just figuring out, that anxiety and gratitude cannot occupy the same space. Anxiety and gratitude cannot occupy the same space in our minds. Science is discovering what Paul learned nearly 2,000 years ago, that it is psychologically impossible for anxiety and gratitude to be in the same room together. They don't get along, and so they have to leave when one comes in. Which one are you inviting into the space of your heart and your mind? And I think it's because celebration and gratitude shift our focus from what is wrong in our lives to what is true and right about God. And it's not about denying the hardships that we face. And I know firsthand how it is not the only solution to anxiety and depression that many of us are trying to faithfully walk through, but it is a way to fight it. And when we practice celebration and gratitude, we rejoice in the Lord who is greater than anything that we face in our life. When we zoom in and we focus on God's goodness, we begin to reorient our minds on things that are good and true and right and noble. And the God of peace not only guards us, but then goes on the offense for us as we begin to put those things into practice, and we call out what is untrue. We call out the darkness, and we walk in the goodness of God.